Hey, my name is Lem Zakharia. I am a queer Palestinian woman living in Australia, currently on holidays in Europe. I couldn't make it because of the time zone differences, so I'm really sorry. I hope this message is enough from me. I would love to join you in future symposiums. But pretty much I created a podcast called Twice Displaced, and a lot of it was about the identity of me being a Palestinian and being queer, and how I was first displaced as a Palestinian with my family. Both my grandma, actually my grandparents from both sides are from Jerusalem, and obviously 1948 happened and they got kicked out. They settled in Jordan, so I do descend from that Palestinian heritage. And then also the queerness. So I didn't really discover that I was queer growing up because I didn't really know that it was a notion or an option or a choice that you could be with a woman. So that was pretty interesting. It was only in my probably like late teens, early 20s that I discovered that I emotionally connect much better with women, and obviously trying to live to the expectations of the people around me, but also trying to be myself was really, really difficult. It was in constant tension with each other. So I was also a musician, a bit of a public figure in Jordan, and having to keep my identity secret was really, really tough. And ultimately what I ended up doing is I claimed asylum in Australia. And I guess this is the main point that I would have wanted to talk about, and I'll just briefly kind of mention to you guys, is that this decision to claim asylum and go to kind of like the white savior and tell them like, this is why our country is so messed up and they won't accept me as I am so that I can get refuge in the country, was so difficult for me. Because if you do look at history, you'll see that in our regions we had plenty of gay, plenty of queer, plenty of everything. We didn't actually think of sex the way that we do think of it now. Like, there wasn't that much shame around it. In fact, we were exoticized for being so open sexually. And it is primarily colonialism that has reshaped what it is like for Arabs to be sexually fluid. And, they kind of came with this concept of civilization. You need to be civil. Even sodomy laws were introduced by the British and the French. And I do think that a lot of the thinking of, the shame behind sex and all of that, obviously religion is part of it, but a huge push came from that you need to be civilized. You are, currently colonized, and you need to get up with these traditions. I do attribute our cultural behaviors and attitudes towards sex largely due to those colonial factors that pretty much not only took governance away from us, but also reshaped culturally what we thought of our own identity, because it is in the end a divide and conquer mechanism that took over those regions. So I guess what I want to say is, so many people believe that you can't be Palestinian and queer, and for me, being both, I'm living evidence and living proof of it. Sometimes I get comments online saying, but you can't be gay in Palestine, so shut up, things like that. I do get stuff like that. And that's primarily what I want to remind us all as Arabs. Shame around sex and the suppression of our sexuality is not inherently, in my view, an Arab thing that we've developed. I do think that the external forces that have oppressed us have largely played into the narrative that we're not quote unquote liberal or quote unquote civil enough, and it's bullshit. It's really bullshit. And I think it's up to us, the queer people, the Palestinian people, allies, the Arabs, to remind each other that we can always change things, we can always work towards progress. And obviously it's really hard for so many of us right now who are not able to speak up and who are not in spaces where they're safe to speak up about what's happening to them. But I do feel that it's, one of my responsibilities to be louder, to speak up, to the dismay of my mum, I have to say. But I do feel like it's a responsibility of mine to keep speaking up, because just by virtue of us existing is us resisting those narratives that are oppressive narratives and that take the agency away from us. Anyway, I would have loved to join you. You can find out more about me through my podcast, Twice Displaced. Please donate. If you've bought the ticket already, donate. And I look forward to joining you soon.